They pay a fee to belong to that organization.
Okay.
And they do lobby in Washington, D.C. In fact, they give us many of the statistics that I brought to your attention. And one thing that's important to mention is 90% of the new affordable housing throughout the country came through tax credit deals. If the tax plan of the administration gets passed and lowers the taxes on businesses, it won't be lucrative for them to get involved in tax credit deals anymore, so there'll be no more affordable housing, aside from the cuts of funds.
Yeah, aside, I'm with you, but you know my point, that's why we're congregating, because we need to come up with a formula together to see how we can accomplish it.
I think one of the things that, just as Jean's organization has one, the city belongs to several advocacy groups who belong to, Pennsylvania Housing Alliance and all these other groups. And I think I sent about 75 letters to the mayor in the last few months to sign on behalf of all these groups, and I do think it had an impact because we got through this year with 17's allocations pretty much intact, where we heard there was going to be a 50% cut.
Okay.
So I think it can work. It's just upon us to do something about it.
Yes. Okay, we have a parent here, and she's also part of a mental health organization, Ms. Marshburn.
Yeah, I work directly kind of with some of the people that we're talking about, through working with people with mental illness. I work with kids who are aging out of the system up at Children's Home of Reading and Easton. And so just looking at their stories and knowing what they're going through with trying to figure out kind of which direction they're going to go in their life when they don't have the basic needs being met of housing. And not only, when you don't have a home, you often don't have regular meals or food. And so just working directly with families and really not having resources for them, to tell them that the waiting list is 3 years, what are you going to do, for those 3 years? Where are you going to go? I also work with, some of the kids in the elementary school here in Bethlehem, and working with a kid, he was having behavioral problems, so I got the referral. I'm a psychotherapist. I got the referral to meet with him, and really the underlying core issue was that him and his mom was homeless, and that he was worried about her when he's in school, and that they were staying with a family member in one of your housing developments. I won't tell you which one, because they speak English. But he was telling me, he's 6 years old, he was like, well, I'm not allowed to go. I'm allowed to go and stay at grandma's, but my mom can't. So she has to sneak in the back door at the nighttime when the man goes to leave. No, not you, but the man. And so, for him, he was having behavioral problems, but really the core issue was the homelessness of him and his mom. And that she is on that waiting list, and she is waiting, but until that happens, he's seen as a bad kid with, these behavioral problems. And so I see that all the time. I work with Chore and kids coming, out of Philadelphia who have been homeless in the streets of Philadelphia. Now they're here. We don't have resources here really for them. And it's a better environment for them here, but really we can't support them after they've left the system. So, and of course foster kids, when they age out of the system, where do they go? What happens to them? Because they can't afford housing and they don't have family support. So I think I have several jobs. I'm a professor at NAC. We have students there who are homeless. We just started there with a food package program for students so that they can leave campus and have food. And some of them are homeless and don't have steady housing, poor transportation, a whole lot of issues. So it's affect, the individuals, but also affecting families. I definitely work with families who hang out at Walmart all night because they don't have a place to go, or Giant, 24-hour places where they can kind of hang out and not be bothered, but because they don't have housing. So it's, I think for those of us who work in the system and directly with the clients and the people affected by these numbers, then you really get to see how this is really affecting people. And it really is right here in this nice suburban area. A lot of families are affected by homelessness.
Well, it's good to know the numbers and what's before us.
I
How
can-
do the police, go ahead, Dr. Gordon, go ahead, John.
Well, I just wanted to say that, one of the challenges is that the system is really fragmented, and I don't know if you were in our schools through the Children's Home of Reading program or not.
I do
But
know.
we have, through Children's Home of Reading, some services provided. How did Reading come in here? Because they said, hey, would you take us in? Yeah, come on in. So we have that. We have all kinds of different, just on the mental health side,
Yeah.
pieces of services that we can pull in. On all the different governmental agencies and all the nonprofits, a lot of times everyone's working in their own lane. So you have, the workforce development, career link people over here. You have the housing people, you have the education people, you have the healthcare people, the mental health people, all the job training, all the various people, but there's a lot of resources, but we don't always leverage them and get the best impact, I think, by doing that. So we've been trying to do more of that. Mr. Gonzalez and I have been working with, trying to focus on a group of parents that, in partnership with St. Luke's, who always is looking to hire people, particularly around medical office staffing, and the community college, and some other people, groups that are coming together to try to develop a pilot program so we could train some of our parents to get jobs, so they can get jobs at St. Luke's. And when you have a job with a better wage, a lot of these other things can fall into place. But that takes a lot of, and the workforce development people are in there too, because they have some funding.
Yeah.
I had no idea that the Housing Authority has some funding for parents. And so when we got together and started to figure it out, we're just starting small, but we're going to try a little pilot for parent training, so with the theory that if parents get to a better place, that's going to help relieve some of these issues that the kids face. But that pulls a bunch of different organizations together, and everybody's got to go through their red tape and so forth. But we're making some progress on it. So one takeaway I hope from this evening is that we think in terms of how can we more strategically and purposefully get people in the same room who are working with maybe the same family in lots of different ways. The Hispanic Center is raising money to renovate a building on 4th Street, right by the Hispanic Center, to become the goal is for it to be a one-stop center for folks. So it's going to include, medical access through St. Luke's and some mental health services with Pinebrook Family Answers. The housing career link is already down there now, and we want to pull in as many resources as possible so when a person or a family is in need, they don't have to go all over the place. You go to one place and you can make the connections that you might need to take care of a few challenges. So I think that model can work, making better use of the existing resources.
How much of this, for all of you, how much is related, is it race related? Does a race take place in any of this?
No, it doesn't in our programs. We have a family self-sufficiency program that actually helps the tenants help themselves. And it's only servicing right now about 50 families, whereby their rent goes in escrow, and if they achieve their goal, one is attending college, graduating from the community college, one is getting a job, and one is getting a down payment on the home. And in fact, we've had roughly 16 home closings on people that have moved out of public housing into houses. So it's successful, but it's for a percentage of people. We have 1,454 units and 50 people are in the program. And of those 50, we've had a lot of success with it. But we still have that program. We are permitted to do that by HUD with some of the funds we have here. So there's still some funds out there, but it doesn't handle the homelessness situation.
We track demographics for HUD. They require us to track demographics of every person that we serve with CDBG and home funds, and there's really no ethnic correlation whatsoever. It's all over the
But
place.
that's improved. All right. to our police, your input from this?
Our involvement, Esther, is a little bit different, as you can expect, dealing with the situation. It's more of on an immediate kind of scenario. We run into homeless pretty regularly, most of the time under unfortunate circumstances. Some do want the help, some don't. But when that happens, to echo the mayor's comments, we take great strides in coordinating with all the shelters continuously through wintertime and summertime as well to try and keep those open, and we provide rides to them. And since I've been there, I don't think I've ever seen or heard of someone homeless that was in need of help that we've just abandoned or left. We take every effort we can to provide them those resources.
You know, with, as it comes to mind, Dr. Roy, with education and homelessness, you know, young people that aren't able to achieve, you know, in school are probably the ones that you'll run into contact with. And then they get a record and they go down to Northampton County to the youth detention center. And, you know, we're losing, and Dr. Roy knows that we speak about this all the time, that we don't want to lose, particularly, you know, the African-American minority child, you know, and our male boys,
Correct.
mainly. You know, we have distinctly more problems with them and filling jails all over. We don't want the continuation of that. But my point would be to the officers, I'm sure that you come across the delinquent, I call them a delinquent young person. And that adds to the influx of the problem throughout the city. And now that summer's coming, what are we going to look for? But I tie education to the fact that if a child doesn't do well in school, then the police have an exceptional job. But you're saying it's not related to homelessness. You don't see that.
It really could work both ways, I think. You know, I think we need the cooperation to move in both of those areas.
But Esther, I think one of the things that I learned in this job that I was totally unaware of, and it was one of my first meetings when I first started this position with Diane Elliott, who runs New Bethany, is how precarious everybody is in this situation. That she has people in her shelter who have PhDs, and there's a medical issue, or there's a loss of employment, and all of a sudden, it's like a house of cards. And I've seen that throughout my career here now in this position, so it's interesting that, yes, maybe I think education is always a good thing, but there's not necessarily a correlation between uneducated and homeless.
It shouldn't be, but
Right.
But there's a reason. I think there's a young man I met earlier as I came in, that homelessness, you know, there are various reasons why people, we're not blinded to that. But I can't, that just seems to us as NAACP individuals that homelessness is something we'd rather not look at objectively. And I think that's our reason for coming together. We all know it's here, but I think the key to it is to do something about it. Diane, here.